Well, let me simplify this final essay prompt a little bit, just to break it down in the simplest form. What you're writing about is the sort of multi level communication effort to confuse people about climate change. And at every level, it's funded by largely the fossil fuel industry and supported, of course, by those who believe what the industry wants them to believe, that global warming is nothing to be concerned about. But let's return to the main thing. Is it's about messaging, multi-layered. So when you look at Luntz, the focal point is this is how the fossil fuel industry connects with everyday voters. Some of the background: Frank Luntz, very well researched talking points that work, that voters connect with, and that turned them away originally from the Kyoto Protocol and their anger that Bush pulled out of it, but eventually over any sort of international climate agreements and climate change. So all those Luntz talking points and all those talking heads, use them. Don't use all of them. You've got a couple of paragraphs of Luntz anyway. Introduce it well. Let us know for whom Luntz created these messages and give us examples of how they show up, whether it's in Trump's speech or all those talking heads. That's what Luntz is about. So that's one level. Let's make sure the voters and the general public watching TV can listen to this stuff on Fox or whatever and say, oh yeah, that's all baloney. There's no climate change. That's all it is. Now, the Heritage Report has a different audience. I should say again, talking heads and Trump and Luntz. Those are your things. You need the talking points from Luntz, and you need the talking heads and or Trump's parrot's exit speech. Plenty of copy there to see how Luntz comes alive with the messengers. Now, with the Heritage, you've got kind of a more elevated discourse. It's written at a higher level. Loaded with footnotes, virtually all of which are nonsense. They either have nothing to do with or they contradict the text itself. And they're also, the majority of them are from climate denialists, people with no scientific credibility. So anyway, but it looks good on the surface. It looks so good that this guy here, Mr. Trump, pretty much echoes their idea. Maybe he didn't read it in the Heritage, but maybe he heard about it when Messenger Rush Limbaugh talked about it. Maybe he heard about it when he was at a conservative think tank event, because that's what the Heritage is for, is giving the, if you will, even though it's all dishonest, the intellectual foundation for kind of a higher level of climate denial, where messengers are talking with other messengers and they're figuring out exactly what to say. They're not just trying to hit everyday voters, even though it will downstream. And so that's what the Heritage is about. This report goes out to thousands of conservative radio stations, goes out to the writers in conservative circles, whether it's TV, radio, and it just kind of shows up. Politicians can say, I read this great report by a research institute. That could be the Heritage. It sounds good. It sounds legitimate. So they're kind of a heavier lifting, looks, but isn't really, more impressive, and is used to guide the messengers, whereas Luntz is mostly used by the messengers, but the target is the voters. With the Heritage, the target is the messengers. Most voters wouldn't want to read that long report with all those footnotes and all that highfalutin language. Most people barely have time to get home, get the kids in order, watch television news for a half hour, and conk out. So that's not the audience. But the Heritage is a kind of upstream from that. Congressional hearings, they have their own magic of evasiveness and slipping and sliding. But it's just worth looking at a few of the key lies and evasions that they use. That's all. they're often saying that, if we don't pump more oil, we're just gonna, the economy is gonna collapse. They don't mention that there's 7 or 9,000 well permits already issued that nobody's tapping into. So they basically kind of paint the picture of either we keep producing all the oil we possibly can, or the whole economy is going to unravel. And they have a couple other things too, but they're basically the leaders of the industry come in, and they have their own wonderful evasions too. One of my favorites is how they have eliminated all emissions. That's what the head of, whether it's BP or Shell, will say. But what they don't say is that's in production. And the real bear in emissions is not how they produce the oil, though that's important. It's the fact that millions of people are burning it every day in their cars. So again, it's a wonderful evasion. It says we've cut down, absolutely eliminated our emissions. We are clean, clean, clean. And I have joked, it's kind of like a cocaine dealer saying that all of our cocaine is organically sourced. I mean, that's nice, but don't forget downstream from that, you've ruined millions of lives. So anyway, they have their own sort of unique evasions, but their goal is, by the way, nobody watches congressional hearings unless you're out of your mind like me. But one of the things they do have is they have to speak on message, because if they go off message, that will be clipped and used and, sent all over social media. Guess what Congressperson Hoodle-Doodle just said? So they have to be very careful and on message. So get an idea of how they're trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. And then finally, the last one, the Toxic 10. This audience here, it's basically involves people like me, like all of us, who spend too dang much time scrolling. But again, the algorithms, they understand what these people want to hear. And if they're kind of conservative and kind of anti-EV and all that, well, guess what? The Toxic 10 is going to make sure that they get these really blunt messages that make people angry. Like, look at those hypocrites. They're flying their planes all the way to Copenhagen while telling us not to fly planes, whatever the heck it is. They're going to constantly be trash talking, literally talking about COP26, about how filthy it was after they left. It has nothing to do with climate change, and we assume they're street cleaners, but it's to say those people who care so much about the environment sure left a mess in Copenhagen. So again, it's just trash talking. It's the audience is people who scroll and look at something for 5 or 14 seconds and then get the satisfaction of being very angry at somebody. That's what they're doing. It's kind of like red meat thrown out there, making sure everybody snarls. And that's about it. So in the overall sense, you've got a multi-layered approach of changing public opinion and break it into sections. One way, appeal to voters. Another way, appeal to messengers. Another way, kind of appeal more generally to make sure that the congresspersons are on message and that the petroleum industry leaders know how to wiggle out of their corner. And then finally, another way is good old clickbait. Let's keep people snarling. If you can kind of, do a drive-by on each of those, you've got plenty of copy here with the Toxic 10, plenty of copy here with the congressional hearings, plenty of copy here with the heritage, and plenty with Luntz. If you can use those as your primary sources and shape a through line, that there are many, many layers and levels of communications used to get this message out. And then your connective tissue, that's your thesis. One paragraph group of 2 or 3 could say, one of the focal points is talking to the voters, and that's where Frank Luntz comes in. And then another layer of communication is making sure the messengers, that's where the heritage comes in. And a third layer of communication is just making sure that the representatives in the legislature know exactly how to sing for supper, and also notice how the petroleum executives acquit themselves. And finally, the last level is a little bit, sorry, I scrolled ahead, is a little bit more down to earth. Let's just get everybody all riled up, and that's where clickbait comes. I hope this gives you some kind of an idea and helps you out a little bit. And good luck. Tonight's Monday, and get a hold of me if you want to have any questions during the week. This is due Friday. That's the last day of the semester, and Canvas does close on Friday. And again, email, whatever, we'll figure it out. If you need a couple minutes of my time, I'm happy to do it. And also, congratulations, we're almost done.